A wonderful good morning to everyone. Welcome to another episode. Nothing is happening in the market except for the range. Yes, one way or another, that pretty much sums up a lot already. Bitcoin is hovering around 70,000 just like last week, with the occasional pump and the occasional dump. But somehow the direction still isn't clear. Yes, of course, we have a supposed ceasefire between Iran, the USA, and Israel, but it isn't being upheld. Energy infrastructure is still being attacked. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed. And in the first countries, oil is slowly but surely running out. And there are still new threats because apparently Trump's peace plan wasn't that great. Who would have thought? It's an absolute shit show, but the markets aren't really reacting to it yet. A ground offensive is becoming more and more likely. Bitcoin doesn't care. The markets are stable. Oil is rising. The problems are the same, but the markets still aren't really reacting to them. We'll definitely take a look at that. Let's calmly go through everything you need to know for today. Otherwise, I hope everyone is somehow in their position and not trading too much, because with the current shit show, honestly, even I am having a hard time finding any suitable setups. But well, we'll make the best of it. And yes, before we get started, as always, feel free to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, feel free to join the free Telegram talk and signal group. If you're interested in updates, news, and signals, feel free to join. You'll find the link for it for free down in the video description. Also tonight again at 7 p.m. of course. Live stream, Thursday live stream. Maybe there will be a bit more volatility because, whenever I stream an hour later, the prices usually drop. So tonight at 7 p.m., don't miss it. I'll also share the link with you on social media, or rather, I'll send it out in the Telegram group. All right. Let's get started. So US and Iran wrangle over talks with no end to the war yet in sight. Hey, what a surprise. The 15-point plan apparently wasn't that great. Then Iran thought, hey, we'll write our own, 5 or 10-point plan. The US doesn't like that one either, so we're sending more ground troops over there. And yeah, let's see what happens. We all know what will probably happen over the weekend if Karg Island is attacked. And then the whole shit show starts all over again, because if this operation somehow backfires, we'll have bigger problems than what we have now. Because stocks are already starting to drop slightly again, even in pre-market trading. In the end, it's really just back and forth every morning when I read you these news updates. Stocks high, oil drops, oil pumps, just like today, stocks fall. We focus on US-Iran talks, but nothing is happening there at all. Oil is still, I have to say, the savior, to be honest. And as long as nothing happens with oil, or rather nothing sustainable, and we've already noticed in the past few days that the oil price keeps rising anyway, or at least stays within its range, even though nothing has really changed. Except for Spain. Spain has now said that this war is crap and is now allowed to go ahead, apparently. So you just have to say that, and then you're allowed to get oil again. That's how the game has worked in the past few days. The market is completely broken, or as I always like to say, everything is fine. Everything's fine, everything is okay. No, in any case, oil keeps getting pumped up again. So usually if oil keeps pumping now, then there will be some new news from Trump saying, no, we've achieved world peace. Oh, some kind of bullshit. You can see it's actually getting on my nerves a bit too, but that's just how it is. Otherwise, what else is possible? Yeah, we're slowly seeing more and more countries with energy shortages, at least that's what I'd say. Over 500 gas stations in Australia have now run out of fuel. The nation's fuel crisis worsens. Cool. First, Australia, let's say, reduced its agricultural products, at least when it comes to wheat, because they no longer have any fertilizer. Now, the first 500 gas stations have closed. Cool. And at the same time, our big problem is looming on the horizon, the housing market. There are more people who want to sell their house rather than buyers. And you see the number of sellers is rising. The buyers, well, there are fewer and fewer of them. To me, this definitely looks like a housing market crisis that's coming our way as well. But that's not surprising when the mortgage rate is over 7% on 30-year government bonds. The whole system is simmering a bit right now. But don't worry, because we have JP Morgan. And they're offering their clients and hedge funds a new one, an AI debt risk hedge. That means you can now short AI debt risk. At least hedge funds can, because if the whole thing goes wrong somehow, they want to make money too and not lose anything. First make a ton of money, and then you can short the whole thing. Big Short 2.0? Yeah, definitely. Let's move on, as I said, to the charts. Bitcoin is at 70,000 US dollars. If we look at the 1 hour time frame, we see there's no volume. Let's check the spot order book. There we see there's 10 million in volume. That's way, way too little. Way, way too little, friends. Let's look at the heat map, at least on the short-term time frames. We still have our biggest liquidity grab over here at 68,400 US dollars. Otherwise, we can't get past the VPVR, which is here at 71,000, or rather 72,000 US dollars, which is very, very strong. CFDs, there's a bit of selling pressure coming in. Open interest is even rising a bit again. That's also not exactly what we want to see right now. Let's also look at the larger heat map, the 7-day heat map. There's less and less liquidity. There's less and less liquidity, really. So as you can see for yourselves, it's getting thinner and thinner. First of all, the range, of course, at some point it's used up. Our cluster is still at 68,000, or rather at 72,000. Okay, the next one is at 64,000 and the lowest is still at 57,000. Nothing changed. So it's really crazy how fake news can push the markets up like this or still keep pushing them up. In the end, nothing has changed. If we get any kind of bullish news, 72.9 is still in play. Otherwise, I just don't see it happening. We just need to take another look at our government bonds. Normally, if we go by the usual pattern, today, let's say around noon, or maybe at the US market opening, there should be some news again that drops US government bonds triggered by Trump. Because the US can't afford 4% on 2-year government bonds. Same goes for over 4% on 5-year bonds. Same as with, where do we have the 20-year bonds? Here, 5% on 20-year bonds every time we entered this critical zone, and some kind of news came out within the last 1 or 2 weeks. So you know what's going on. And the next problem is already at the doorstep, and that's Japan. I know, I keep telling you, but Japan is getting worse and worse right now. The 2-year government bonds are now at 1.339%. That's higher than they've been since 1996. That says it all. When something shoots up like that and the 20 and 30-year bonds don't look any better, then you know what time it is. Sooner or later, something is going to go absolutely catastrophically wrong with this. The only question is, what will blow up first? I think the ground offensive, and then hopefully one thing after another will fall. But yes, Bitcoin definitely at 69,000 US dollars. The volume is modest. We have a range that has been sweeping up liquidity at the top and bottom for days. That's the game. That's the game. With Bitcoin and with Ethereum, same game. And with Solana, same game. Nothing is happening at all. And for me, I can repeat what I said last week in the live stream. For me, all of this still resembles more of a rising wedge than anything else. And we can see that with Ethereum, and we can basically apply it to Bitcoin as well, depending on how you draw it. If you include the WEEX or whatever, it's just tightening up more and more, slowly but surely. Or we've just fallen below it again. It's an absolute shit show. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys, but I can't change it. Let's move on to the real Forex markets, and there the US dollar is slowly rising again. So for me, carry trade risk is still not present at the moment. For me, Japanese intervention is still around 101, 102, even though I would actually prefer it. But all right, then at least the euro would have to fall slightly again, which is also a good sign. Otherwise, nothing much is happening in Forex, just like with Bitcoin. Then the traditional markets, or let's start with gold first. Gold is slowly recovering from its lows. At least we're seeing slow upward movements now that things have calmed down a bit. Gold is still a risk-off asset, I'll just put it that way. But if the dollar strengthens again, as we've seen in the last few hours, gold will probably experience its next sell-off as well. But for me, the $4,000 to $3,600 zone is still the area where I'll start buying spot again. Definitely. With silver, it's the same story. I'm also waiting maybe for one last massive crash to possibly get in either physically or take a long position. Otherwise, let's move on to the traditional markets. DAX just under 23,000 points. Yeah, not much is really happening. Dow Jones, yeah. Lower high, so at least the trend is still visible. No one can deny that. We keep forming lower highs and lower lows. That's the trend that's present. And now here again, basically, so nothing has changed also with the US 30, or rather Dow Jones. Then over to the Nasdaq, but let's switch to the daily time frame just to see what the volume looks like. The volume looks absolutely disastrous. Again, it's just the negative retest of our range here, okay? S&P 500, same story, negative volume. We need some momentum, folks. Some kind of momentum, and not just some US money supply or some bullshit like that. So there's no point bringing that up now, but volatility is still at 24. For me, that's still a sign that this isn't over yet. We still have several nice vector candles here, up towards 27. There should still be an event coming up before we break out to the upside. And as long as we stay at this level, I've been telling you for weeks, when the volatility index stays this high for so long, at this level, hedging just keeps happening and happening and happening for some event that might possibly occur in the next few days. Let's wait and see. Otherwise, I'd say for now, everything is fine. Really, all is good. Otherwise, we'll hear from each other again this evening at 7 p.m. for the live stream, hopefully with a bit more volatility. Otherwise, you know the short-term levels, 68.5 is very, very important for Bitcoin, at least simply to possibly close the inefficiency here again or down here. As I said, that also fits with the heat map. It could be an option to maybe open a small long position here again. Otherwise, we currently can't get above our WPVR here. After that, things look pretty thin below the 67.5 mark anyway. And yes, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. We'll talk again this evening. I'm looking forward to it. And yes, until then, ciao, ciao. And as always, stay crazy.